Have you ever been left so suddenly that it felt like a knife in your chest? One day someone is texting you good morning. The next day, nothing. No explanation, no warning, just silence that screamed louder than any words could. And you sit there, staring at your phone, replaying every moment you shared together, trying to find the answer to one unbearable question. What did I do wrong? Let me tell you something that you probably already feel in your bones, but have been too afraid to accept. You did nothing wrong, not a single thing. But here's what makes it worse. Months go by. You start to breathe again. You start to rebuild yourself from the rubble they left behind. And then, just when you have finally learned to sleep without your phone in your hand, they text you. And the text says nothing that makes sense. Something like, "Hey, I was just thinking about you." Or worse, they send something that sounds almost kind, almost apologetic, almost like they finally understand what they lost. And in that moment, something inside you cracks wide open again. You thought you were healing. You thought the wound was closing. But one message from them, and suddenly you are right back at the beginning, questioning everything all over again. And this is where most people get completely lost, because they don't understand why this keeps happening to them. They think it is about the other person. They think if they just understand the other person better, if they just figure out what went wrong, they can finally stop the pain. But that is not what this is about at all. What you are experiencing is something that has a name. It has a pattern. It has a reason. And once you understand it, you will never look at the situation the same way again. You will stop blaming yourself. You will stop waiting for answers that were never coming. And most importantly, you will stop allowing this pattern to control your life. Here is what I want you to understand before we go any further. You were not too much. You were not too emotional. You were not too available. You were not difficult to love. You were simply a human being who loved another human being, and that other human being had something broken inside them that had nothing to do with you. Nothing. The truth is, the person who walked away from you was fighting a battle you couldn't see, not because they are a villain, but because somewhere in their life they learned that getting close to someone was dangerous. That vulnerability was something to avoid, that the moment someone got too close, it was time to run. And they did run, from you. And it felt like your entire world was ending. But here is what is coming next. In the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through exactly why this happened, not with complicated psychology that makes you feel confused, but with clear, simple, honest truth that will make you finally understand everything. I am going to show you the pattern that has been keeping you trapped. I am going to explain why they come back and why it never lasts. And most importantly, I am going to show you how to break free from this cycle forever. This is not going to be easy to hear. Some of what I share will sting, because I am going to tell you things that no one else has been brave enough to say to you. But I believe you are strong enough to hear it. And I believe that once you hear it, you will never be the same. So stay with me until the end. Not because I ask you to, but because you deserve to finally have the clarity that sets you free. You deserve to understand what happened to you, and you deserve to know that you are not alone in this. Because you are not alone, not even close. Millions of people have lived inside this cycle without ever knowing it had a name, without ever knowing it was real, without ever knowing it wasn't their fault. And today, for the first time, you are going to see the full picture. And when you see it, something inside you will shift. Something inside you will finally relax. You are about to stop guessing. You are about to stop hoping. And you are about to start living. Let's begin. What happened to you was real. I need you to hear that before anything else. What happened to you was real. The pain you felt when they walked away without warning, that was not an overreaction. The confusion that kept you awake at night, that was not weakness. The way your chest felt tight every time you looked at something that reminded you of them, that was not drama. That was the response of a human heart that was treated like it didn't matter. And that response is completely, absolutely valid. You are not crazy for feeling the way you feel. In fact, if you didn't feel this way, something would be seriously wrong with you. Because loving someone and then being suddenly thrown away like you never mattered, that is one of the most painful experiences a person can go through. It cuts deep. Not because you are fragile, but because you are alive. And alive people feel things deeply. That is not a flaw. That is the best part of you. But here is what the world rarely tells you. The world tells you to move on quickly. The world tells you to stop being so emotional. The world tells you that time heals everything, so just wait. But the world never stops to tell you that what you experienced was genuinely traumatic. Not in a small way. in a real way. The sudden disappearance of someone who meant everything to you, that leaves a wound on your nervous system that doesn't just disappear because the calendar changed. And the worst part is you had to carry this pain alone because most people around you don't understand. They say things like, just forget about them, or there are plenty of fish in the sea, or you deserve better anyway. And all of those things might be true, but none of them make the pain go away, because the pain isn't just about losing someone. The pain is about losing yourself in the process, losing the version of you that believed this person was different, losing the future you imagined together, losing the person you thought you were when you were with them. That is a real loss, and real losses deserve real grieving. So if you have been beating yourself up for still thinking about them, for still feeling sad, for still not being over it after all this time, stop. Right now, stop that. You are not broken, you are not behind, you are not weak. You are simply someone who gave their heart to someone who couldn't hold it properly. And that is not your shame to carry, that is their weight to carry. But they never will. So the only person who can give yourself permission to heal is you. And I want you to know something important. The confusion you feel is not a sign that you are lost. It is a sign that you are paying attention. Most people in your situation would have convinced themselves they are fine by now. Most people would have buried the pain under distractions and fake positivity and pretending everything is okay, but you are still searching for answers. You are still trying to understand. That means your mind is refusing to accept a lie. And that is powerful. That is the beginning of your freedom. You are not crazy for still feeling this. You are not broken for still hoping. You are not weak for still caring. You are simply a person who loved honestly and received dishonesty in return. And that is enough reason to feel exactly the way you feel. So take a breath, not to push the feeling away, but to let it be what it is. Because until you allow yourself to fully feel what happened, you cannot truly move beyond it. This pain is not your enemy, it is your teacher, and once you learn what it came to teach you, it will transform into something much stronger than pain. It will transform into wisdom. It will transform into clarity. It will transform into the kind of emotional strength that most people never develop in their entire lives. You are going to be okay, not because the pain will disappear overnight, but because you are finally ready to understand it. And understanding is the first step toward freedom. There is a name for what you have been experiencing, and once you know that name, everything in your mind will start to connect in a way it never has before. It is called the avoidant discard cycle. I want you to sit with that phrase for a moment. Avoidant discard cycle, because those three words contain the entire explanation for what happened to you, not just part of it, all of it. And understanding each piece will change the way you see every single moment you have been through since they walked away. Let me break it down slowly so you can fully absorb it. The word avoidant describes someone who has a deep unconscious pattern of pulling away from emotional closeness. This is not something they do on purpose. It is not a strategy. It is a protection mechanism that runs automatically the moment they feel like someone is getting too close to their heart. They don't even realize it is happening. It happens the way your hand jerks away from a hot stove. Instinct, reflex, survival. And the word discard means exactly what it sounds like. It means being thrown away, cast aside, made irrelevant. But here is the critical part. The discard is not about you. It never was. It is about them feeling suffocated by their own fear. And the only way they know how to escape that fear is to eliminate the source of it, which in that moment is you, not because you hurt them, but because you made them feel something real. And real feelings are the most terrifying thing in the world for someone who built their entire life around avoiding them. Now, the word cycle is the most important part of all, because the story doesn't end when they walk away. The story has a next chapter, and that next chapter is built into the pattern itself. Here is how the cycle works. Step 1, connection happens. They meet you or reconnect with you, and something inside them lights up. For a moment, they feel what it would be like to be close to someone, and it feels good, really good. Step 2, intimacy increases. The more time you spend together, the more they start to feel safe with you. And safety for a moment makes them believe they can let their guard down. Step 3, fear activates. The closer you get, the more their nervous system starts sending alarms. It tells them that being this close to someone is dangerous, that if they stay here, they will lose themselves, that the only way to survive is to run. Step 4, they run. Suddenly. Without warning. They disappear not because they stopped caring about you, but because they care so much that it scares them, and they would rather hurt you than face that fear. Step 5. Relief arrives. After they leave, they feel a wave of relief wash over them. The pressure of closeness is gone. They feel free again, and they believe they made the right decision. Step 6. The void grows, but relief is temporary. And the void they created inside themselves by cutting you off, it doesn't stay empty. It grows louder and louder until they can't ignore it anymore. Step 7. They come back. The cycle completes itself. They reach out to you because you represent the only warmth they know. And when they reach out, they seem different, softer, almost like they have changed. But they haven't. They have just cooled down enough to forget why they ran in the first place. And then, if you let them back in, the cycle begins again, from the beginning, usually with the same ending. This is the pattern that has been controlling your life without you even knowing it existed. And knowing it exists is everything, because once you see the map, you can step off the path. You are no longer a victim of someone else's fear. You are a person with knowledge, and knowledge is power. Now, in the sections ahead, I'm going to walk you through each step of this cycle in detail. I am going to explain why each step happens exactly the way it does. And I am going to show you what is really going on inside their mind when they do the things that hurt you the most. This is going to be hard to hear. Some of it will make you angry. Some of it might make you cry. But all of it is going to give you something you have probably never had before. Clarity. Real, deep, unshakable clarity. And that clarity is going to set you free in a way that nothing else ever could. Now I want to get to the part that hurts the most. The actual moment they left. The moment when you were right there, right in front of them, and they chose to walk away like you didn't exist. Let's talk about what really happened. Not the surface story, but the emotional truth underneath it all. When they pulled away from you in that moment, it was not because they stopped loving you overnight. It was not because you did something unforgivable. It was not because your relationship had run its course in some natural, inevitable way. What happened was something much deeper and much more painful than any of those explanations. Something inside them reached a threshold, a point where the emotional closeness between you became too much for them to bear. And the moment they hit that threshold, their entire system went into emergency mode. Not the dramatic kind you see in movies, the quiet kind. The kind that happens so fast they barely even know it is happening. Their brain sent a signal to their body that said, "This is dangerous. Get out now." And their body obeyed before their heart could have a say in the matter. This is called an emotional cutoff, and it is one of the most destructive patterns that exists in human relationships. Here is what makes it so destructive. Most people who experience an emotional cutoff don't even understand what they are doing. To them, it feels like they are making a logical choice. They convince themselves that they are protecting themselves from something bad, that leaving is the right thing to do, that you would be better off without them anyway. But none of that is true. What is true is that their nervous system detected a threat and activated its oldest, most primal defense mechanism, fight or flight. And in that moment, flight was the only option their body knew how to take. Now, I need you to understand something very clearly. The threat they were running from was not you. The threat was intimacy itself. The threat was the feeling of being truly known by another person. The threat was the possibility of losing themselves inside a connection that demanded something from them emotionally. That is the threat. And it is the only threat that has ever existed in your relationship. You didn't ask for too much. You didn't suffocate them. You didn't pressure them. You simply loved them in the way that every human being deserves to be loved. And that love, that normal, healthy human love, became the thing that scared them more than anything else in the world. Think about how painful that is for a moment. Their fear was so deep that the best thing that ever happened to them felt like the worst thing that could happen to them. And because they didn't know how to manage that fear, they chose to destroy something beautiful rather than face something terrifying. That is not your fault. That is their limitation. And it is a limitation that has nothing to do with you and everything to do with the way their heart learned to protect itself years and years before you ever came into their life. I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine that you are sitting across from a person who has never learned how to swim, and they are standing at the edge of a pool, and you reach out your hand and offer to help them in. You say, "The water is warm. It will feel good. I will be right here with you the whole time. And instead of taking your hand, they look at the water and feel such overwhelming terror that their only instinct is to run. Not because the water is bad, not because you are pushing them, but because they have never been taught that water is safe. That is what happened with you. You were offering them the most beautiful experience a person can have, a genuine, deep, emotional connection with another human being. And they ran not because the connection was bad, but because no one ever taught them that it was safe. This is why it felt so confusing, because on the surface there was no reason for them to leave. Everything looked fine. You were good together. You made each other laugh. You understood each other. But underneath all of that, their heart was screaming at them to get out before it was too late. And they listened. Now, here is what you need to take away from this section. You did not cause them to leave. You could not have prevented it, and you cannot fix it, because this pattern belongs to them, not you. It was never your responsibility to manage someone else's fear of love. It was only ever your responsibility to love honestly, and you did. That is enough. That is more than enough.